Today I'm talking to Damien Wong. He is Vice President and General Manager of Asian Growth and Emerging Markets at RedHat. And it's quite nice that you take the time for us.
Well, thank you, Niels, for coming all the way to sunny Singapore and having a chat.
Yeah, we are super interested in how you are doing things here at RedHat when it comes to innovation, when it comes to modern ways of working. So maybe as a little introduction, what is innovation for you and what does it mean to work in an innovative way?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, maybe just a quick introduction for those who are not as familiar with RedHat. RedHat is the world's largest open source software company, and for those who are not technologically inclined or savvy, open source is just a different way of developing software, which involves collaboration across a community. Different from closed source development, which is about doing it behind closed doors in a lab, away from everyone. So it's a different way of doing this, which RedHat actually was a champion of in the early days. We're 25 years old this year, and over the last 25 years, I think it's great to see that RedHat has helped this whole movement of collaboration, innovation in the community thrive and help organizations everywhere. So, with that as a backdrop, Niels, what do I think of innovation? Innovation is in the very core of what we do at RedHat. We take innovation from collaboration across different people, different ideas, different ways of solving problems, and developing the programs that actually solve these problems. And that's what we do every day. So we take this innovation, we actually encourage it, we catalyze it, curate it, and then make it ready for companies to use this software, right? Because the innovation is raw in the beginning. I like to think of it as like water. So water in the lakes and the rivers are raw, but it's free. And you wouldn't drink that water straight from a river, especially not in Asia, But there are organizations that take that water, purify it, make it safe to drink, and then they put a guarantee. They put it in bottles. They put a guarantee and say, "Hey, Niels, if you pay us a little bit of money, you get the peace of mind that this water is safe to drink." So that's what we do with innovation. RedHat takes that innovation, we actually encourage it, catalyze it, and make it ready for companies to consume it. So we do that every single day, right? And it's a different way of working, obviously, from traditional technology companies or software companies, because our very existence is based on encouraging collaboration and innovation, and new ways of solving problems together in a group or in a community. So I hope that gives you a better idea of what we do.
Okay, and when you say that you're doing this every day, so many people, many teams are working on it, what is most important so that people really can be efficient, innovative, and creating interesting new products?
Absolutely. So I think first we also have to understand that the very definition of innovation means creating something new, right? A new process, a new piece of software code, a new way of solving a problem. Now, the fact that we are trying new stuff means that inherently there is a lot of things that won't go right the first time.
True.
And in many traditional organizations, that is not a good thing. Organizations don't like the word failure, right? You try something, it better work. Otherwise you get into trouble. But that mindset actually stifles innovation, because you want people to try stuff that's not been tried before, but could be a better way of solving a problem, a more cost-effective way, a more innovative way, a more relevant way to do something that has not been done before.
True. But you need to make more mistakes in order to get faster and better at that.
Absolutely. If you're not making mistakes, you're not trying new stuff, because there is no such thing as being innovative without having tried stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah, true.
You learn through the process of trying stuff that doesn't work, and then you make it better. So, for organizations to change and become more innovative, definitely there needs to be a shift to this mindset that it's okay to try stuff and it not work the first time. But the most important thing is, what are you going to do with that learning? How do you use that to make better choices, better products, better decisions? And I think that will be the essence of creating a culture of innovation.
Do you have any experiences or also any specific tips how to use this knowledge and these learnings so that just not get forgotten after a little while, so that you really embrace all these failures and do something constructive with it?
Well, we and that's a very good question, because we encounter these types of situations every single day. Sometimes we have to bite our tongue and stop ourselves from saying, hey, that's not good because it didn't work, right? But then ask yourself, what exactly did we learn from this not going the way we wanted, instead of going on a witch hunt and saying, hey, who did this decision, and let's get this person out of the organization. So you want to create this environment and create a safe way of innovating, obviously not in areas that will be life and death, right? Those are things that you don't want to innovate on the fly. You want it to be very controlled innovation. But usual things that you look at, right? For example, if you want a new way of working with our business partners in the community, trying something, thinking that it will work in a certain way, and then finding it doesn't, then the next question is that, you tried it, it doesn't work. Why didn't it work? Have we thought about it? So what can we do to make it better the next time around, right? And I think that is a very, very positive way of looking at it and innovating. And there's a buzzword in terms of the way people are looking at iterative improvements, incremental improvements. It's called agile, right? An agile way of working. And agile is all about that. How do you take small pieces of work, a small problem, and then try to solve it, make it better, step by step, right? And I think learning through making mistakes is also something that one has to approach with an agile mindset, right? Look at it, and then do we have to change the whole thing, or do we make certain tweaks to it so that it will work better the next time, and so on. So
how do you then how do you put it into a culture? Because for me, especially the agile mindset has a lot to do with culture.
Absolutely.
Also kind of forming an environment where you're allowed to make mistakes. It's also a lot about culture.
Absolutely.
So what do you do to embrace this positive and innovative culture here?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. No one can mandate innovation.
Right.
No one can just say overnight, this is our new culture, because that is just words, right? It's not what happens in the corridors, in the workspaces, and so on and so forth. So in order for culture to truly change, the tone has to be set from the top as well, because if a leader in the organization, if the CEO, for example, does not share the same beliefs, it is very difficult, because everything you try is probably not going to get the support that you need. Our experience has also been that if you are trying to shift your culture, it is probably important to look at a few things. One, are you trying to bite off more than you can chew, right? Because if you try to change everything in one instance, then you may not be successful, and then that will then feed the naysayers who say, I told you so, it's not going to work, and therefore it didn't work. But find areas that you can show tangible differences, apply a new way of working with people who are actually a bit more open-minded, but also a little bit more vocal. They are the change agents. So, my experience has been, if we can do that, and shift culture almost one brick at a time, right? After a certain point, then you get critical mass, and then it takes a life of its own. There's a book by a famous author called Jim Collins. He wrote a book called Good to Great, and they talk about this flywheel, right? And this is almost like the flywheel. If you want to shift culture, you have to take the steps to shift the flywheel, over time, consistently, and eventually it will take a life of its own. Once everyone has seen that, hey, actually this works, right? Without the risk of massive failure with a very big project. So that is my experience as well. We've had to shift culture a little bit at a time. Obviously our culture, we are very proud of it. We're very pleased with what it's achieved, but we also hire a lot of new people from the outside, and they bring their own version of culture.
It's always culture is always a living organism, right?
Absolutely.
And what would be interesting also for me to know when it comes to leadership, and especially to the top management, you already said it a little bit, you have to walk the talk, right? So if you don't embrace it, it's hard to tell your employees that they should maybe work differently now. So how do you take care that you are a role model, even if it's sometimes maybe a bit tricky?
Yeah, well, your team members, your associates, your employees can tell very easily if you don't walk the talk. It's like you say, I agree. I agree absolutely that this is the right thing to do, and they'll see that you don't really agree. Your body language says otherwise, what you do says otherwise, and then they'll say, okay, it's not real, right? So, it's about making it clear that this is something for everybody, right? And it starts with yourself, so leaders need to remember that they are role models, right? And they can influence the climate very easily, right? And not just say you do it, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm different. That doesn't help a lot. So I do a lot of the things myself, and I'm the first to admit, for example, if I made a mistake, right? It's difficult, sometimes it's humbling, but and the reason for that is very simple. I want people to know that, hey, look, we're all humans, right? And everybody's opinion matters, and I make mistakes just like you do, right? But when I make a mistake, I admit it. I also tell them what I've learned from it and how to move this forward. Obviously, I will tell them, look, I think we all make mistakes from time to time. Just don't look at areas which are life and death, and then catastrophic failure will be not advisable in those situations. Like flying a plane, right? You don't want to innovate as you try to fly a plane, land a plane, but you might, as an airline, want to innovate cabin service, right? A new way of taking care of your passengers and so on and so forth. So I think we just need to make sure that we provide an environment, provide a good role model by doing this yourself, but also create the parameters that they know how to innovate safely within, and that will encourage innovation.
Okay. So Damien, you have already a lot of experience also in leading other people. So for all the young managers, all the young leaders, do you have some really good advisors? So maybe they do some mistakes not that often, or they can learn from your struggles. What could you tell young founders and entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. Now, again, I have, when I say sharing best practices, it usually means I have scars on my back to prove that I've made those mistakes myself. And I think I have made enough mistakes that I can tell what would be good in an entrepreneurial environment, what would be good maybe in a larger organization. So different types of managers in those instances. For entrepreneurs, I think one of the things that I see successful entrepreneurs have is the fact that this belief that despite all the failures that you encounter, you will succeed. But it's not just blindly charging down a path without considering what tweaks and changes you got to make. So I think for entrepreneurs who are managing young startups, it's about continuing to instill that belief, but at the same time knowing that you are going to have to make tweaks along the way, right? And be flexible with that. With larger organizations, the experience will be different. You're working in a big, probably more bureaucratic environment. How do you deal with the bureaucracy so that you can still continue to be innovative and create new ways of doing things? We all can do it, and it starts with the manager. If the manager within the team conveys the message, forget it, there's no point, it's pointless. Nobody in the team is going to even try. And the creative ones will probably leave, right? But as managers, you know, what I've seen, you know, and I've worked for large as well as small organizations, the best way to create this kind of an environment is, you know, have the ability to know how to set parameters and tell the team, look, you know, I think if we can make mistakes within these parameters, that's fine, you know. And in a big organization, that will probably be more easily acceptable, as opposed to saying, you know, make any mistake that you want, right? You know, you have the finance people saying you can't do this. You have the, you know, the legal people saying you can't do this, and so on and so forth. So you know, tell them, you know, this is how we want to look at it, and you know, and if you innovate within these parameters, that's fine. So you know, I think modern ways of working very similar to the ways that people innovate in open source community. There's more influence than authority. And in today's environment, if you notice the workforce, you almost don't have a lot of formal authority anymore, even though the organization structure says you do, because people can choose to, they can vote with their feet and walk out of the organization.
True.
Right, you know, so you really want to win the hearts and minds, and the only way to win the hearts and minds is to understand what makes them tick, how do you cater to that, right, you know, and of course, if you want to encourage them to be more innovative and creative, I think everybody wants to be innovative and creative. They want to feel that they have created something new, made a difference.
Have
so
some impact.
Absolutely, I think it's only the world around us that makes us cynical and you know, less willing to try, right? So how do we continue to keep the spark alive in each of us? And I think that's where, as managers, we have to be able to balance the needs externally as well as, you know, the desires of your team. So that is how we've done it. It's not easy.
No.
There is no magic silver bullet that solves all the world's problems, and I think that's where, as managers, we also continue to learn and admit that we don't know everything, and that you know, we have to, including myself, I make changes to the way I manage, you know, in different environments that I'm in.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, for your insights, and all the best for you.